How does the classroom work? Well, we give you a level of lack of understanding that allows you a hope that what you value may be feasible, and you attempt it. You learn the consequences of such, not in an eternal sphere, but in a universe of the temporal. Life itself not being infinite. You make a mistake, but it's still important to you because part of the ignorance that you're blessed with, so to speak, hides the fact that this is a temporary universe and there's nothing afterwards. Sorry, it hides the fact that there's anything afterwards. So you think there isn't, or there's a possibility there isn't. Which makes the calamity you're facing greater in a sense, because although the calamity won't go on forever, there's nothing else afterwards. So that relatively speaking, and it's all relative here, everything's relative, you've got a loss, and that's all there is. There's nothing else. End of life. And it worked out badly. And you can see it was the consequence of having certain values and certain goals and purposes. And they didn't bring happiness at all. This so impresses on your mind, of course, that the experience of taking the wrong road was utterly terrible. You certainly don't want to face it again. So it's a great learning situation. We can experiment as if this is all there is. Not for eternity, but for the minimal life that you can expect to live here. For argument's sake, 70 or 80, 90 years. And of course you may die earlier and not even have that. And that proportionately, relatively speaking then, is everything, all you've got. And you find you've wasted it on some non-eternal pastime. And not even a great joy in the present either. In the time you do have. I don't know how many of these lives or situations you might need to be clear on what you truly need to value and what you ultimately do value. So being here in this universe is a great blessing. It's being trained for eternity. There's another issue I wanted to bring up. I'm not sure whether it's related or not, but the truth, the pursuit of truth, is only of value if truth brings happiness. And since truth is so hard to come by with such limited experience and ability as we have, We need to desperately hope that there's a more sure way. And of course there is. I suppose I summarise it by saying we need the help and hand of God, not our own efforts. Man, much of the time, pursues things by his own efforts. He doesn't do it in tandem with God. He builds alone. He has a good idea and he decides he's going to do it this way, and battles and stresses and must have and fails and takes shortcuts and compromises all sorts of joy and pleasure to achieve what he goes about achieving. Whereas if he were to be in harmony with God, trust in the goodness and the blessing that he sees in his life, he would be quite different, filled with hope, assurance and peace and joy, love and happiness, compassion, kindness, true creativity in harmony with God. Do you see the pursuit of truth as a byroad? It's close to the pursuit of wisdom. Wisdom seems very wise until you realize it's not. Wisdom of man is as foolishness with God. Why? Because of his values and motivation. It makes a mockery of wisdom. What is the Shakespeare thing? Poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage. That's heard no more. Here's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That's what man's wisdom can be. You may say, oh no, I seek true wisdom. How do you mean? True wisdom is to recognize the incredible blessings you've received of life and experience. What happens then is that you're filled with great gratitude, the love of all that is good. Wow. You're on track for eternal life. Do I need wisdom? How does wisdom compare with the love and care and guidance of God? How can my wisdom come anywhere near such a blessedness as that? It can't, can it? So, we don't worship truth and we don't worship wisdom. We're devoted to God, our God, our Heavenly Dad, personification of all that we value. love you, Dad. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Well, you say, I can see your point if God exists, but what if he doesn't? And I think he doesn't. Right. Well, you're not likely to be able to track God down easily by analysis. Why don't you simply practice thinking on whatever's good and lovely and see what happens? Does it bring an assurance of having been greatly cared for and provided for? And doesn't it bring in your being tremendous feeling of gratitude? And to whom should I thank? I would like God to exist. That's the experience of the matter. Do I choose to think of him existing or choose to think of him as not existing? I may have thought of him not existing for some considerable time. In fact, all of my remembered and conscious time might be largely filled with this. Has it brought me the contentment, joy, peace, happiness, hope, assurance, fullness of life? Well, no, a bit mixed, really. Right. Well, practice now assuming God does exist instead. Well, I'd want to thank him for all that's good. Perhaps I wouldn't want to thank him for all that's bad, but I'm going to focus on that which is good so that I do thank him for what he may potentially have given. Right. And become in the habit of doing that for a while. See how your life is transformed. How you become assured of that goodness that you have found and seen in your life and do see from day to day, moment to moment. You become aware of some gratitude for such. You're thankful, quite simply. And since you're choosing to assume he does exist, you thank him for it. You start to love your God. It is your God, of course. It's a personification of what you value, and you own it to him. Your joy increases, your peace increases, your assurance and hope all increase. These are all what you need to experience fullness of life and life eternal. Without them, life is not good. You find gratitude wells up inside you, an abundance in a sense, an ability to love others, and to want that goodness for them. And that is the loving of others, isn't it? You become compassionate and warm-hearted and wanting to give joy and hope and all that you have. And then, of course, from time to time you review and you think, now, is this better than what I assumed before, namely that God did not exist? Does assuming God does exist bring all that I value? The answer is yes. Well, I don't know if you've proved it or not, but you certainly know the way you're going to go, don't you? Bless you. And you are blessed. child of God, your God, wonderful God, God that you experience day in, day out. You have life eternal. You're in the kingdom of heaven now. There's no point in preaching to me about pursuit of truth and wisdom and enlightenment, and I have glorious life. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Thank you, Dad. If you had the experience of falling in love in your life, well, it may have faded, but that's glorious. Well, to love what you understand to be the perfect and the eternal is infinitely more. That says it all. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. To worship you I live, to worship you I live to worship you. To worship you I live, to worship you I live to worship you. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Oh, 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 oh. To worship you I live, to worship you I live to worship you. To worship you I live, to worship you I live to worship you. Love you, Heavenly Dad. Thank you, Dad.